there's a quiet voice in your head. You know the one. It's the whisper that says, "You're not ready. Who do you think you are?" And maybe the cruelest, what if you fail again? Most people don't realize this, but that voice isn't actually you. It's a collection of echoes, things you were told, ways you were treated, moments you felt invisible. And for 92.7% of people, that voice becomes the compass they live by. But it points nowhere, just around in circles. Here's the truth. Self-doubt doesn't scream. It disguises itself as humility, as being realistic. But really, it's the chain that keeps your potential buried slowly and silently. So let me ask you something. What if the doubts you carry weren't even yours to begin with? What if they were inherited, absorbed, embedded in you before you had a chance to choose? This isn't about motivation. It's about memory and mercy. And today we're going to unravel the root of that doubt, the real reason you shrink from your own greatness. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to remember who you were before the world told you not to believe in yourself. Self-doubt doesn't start in adulthood. It begins in rooms you barely remember. Moments that felt small but left a mark. A raised eyebrow, a cold silence, a withheld "I'm proud of you." It starts when a child shares their excitement and is met with a sigh. When they try and are told, "Not like that." When they cry and are told, "You're too sensitive." That's how the world starts to edit you, quietly, repeatedly. You learn quickly. Being yourself has consequences. So you shape-shift. You become what feels safer, quieter, smaller, pleasing. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system decided survival mattered more than truth. No one taught you how to name these things, so they became part of your wiring. Not facts, but familiar. And familiar always feels true. That's the trap. And so the belief grows. I'm not good enough. I must not mess up. I'm only loved when I'm perfect. I'm safest when I'm invisible. These aren't just passing thoughts. They become identity. Not because they're accurate, but because they've never been questioned. And here's the twist. The older you get, the better you become at defending the very beliefs that harm you. You call it realism. You call it being careful. But really, it's the inner child still afraid they'll lose love for being too much. You see, 92.7% of people don't suffer from laziness, lack of discipline, or even fear of failure. They suffer from old definitions of love. They were taught to earn love, to be palatable, to be useful, to perform instead of be. And now as adults, they hold themselves hostage with the same standards that once kept them safe, but now keep them small. But here's the truth no one told you. You're not too much. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't hold all of you. Doubt isn't your flaw. It's your history speaking through your habits. It's a bruise pretending to be a blueprint. Most people don't walk around thinking, "I doubt myself." That would be too easy to catch, too loud to ignore. Self-doubt is more clever than that. It hides in plain sight, in the little moments, the job you don't apply for, the boundary you don't set, the compliment you deflect, the apology you give even when you've done nothing wrong. It shows up when you triple-check that message, second-guess your instincts, or shrink your opinion just to keep the peace. And here's the painful part. The world rewards that behavior. They call it being considerate. They say you're humble, easy to work with, agreeable. But inside, you're disappearing. Quietly, slowly, completely. 92.7% of people are living this way, performing just enough to be liked, but never enough to be fully seen. And that's the paradox of self-doubt. It makes you afraid of rejection. So you reject yourself first. It makes you fear failure. So you never give yourself a real chance to win. And after years of this, it becomes your default. You stop dreaming big because what's the point? You don't speak up because no one's listening anyway. You choose safe even when it's suffocating. You convince yourself that the smaller life is the wiser one. You tell yourself you're just being realistic. But here's the catch. Realism without hope is just fear in a lab coat. And the people around you, they might not even notice. Because self-doubt isn't always dramatic. It's subtle. It's quiet. It wears the mask of responsibility, logic, maturity, being realistic. But let's be real. It's fear. Fear dressed in polite clothing. Some people call it being practical. But you know what's practical? Living a life that doesn't hollow you out. A life where your soul doesn't need to ask permission to speak. So ask yourself, how many decisions have you made not out of desire, but out of fear of being wrong? That's how self-doubt survives. Not with loud resistance, but with quiet compliance. It lives in the spaces you've abandoned, the passions you set aside, the voice you silence, the version of you that's never been fully invited to exist. And that version, the full one, deserves to breathe. There's a moment, quiet but unmistakable, when the pattern finally reveals itself. When you realize this voice in your head, it's not truth, it's training. It's the first time you hear your doubt and don't immediately obey it. You notice it. Pause. And in that pause, something cracks open. A space. That space is everything. Because once you see the doubt clearly, you start to notice how loyal you've been to it. How many choices you've made to avoid disapproval. How many opportunities you've sidestepped. Not because you weren't ready, but because you didn't think you were allowed to want more. It's like realizing you've been walking with a limp, only to find out the injury healed years ago. The pain is gone, but the habit stayed. And you've been limping ever since, even though you're capable of running. This moment, this first recognition, isn't always dramatic. It doesn't come with a lightning bolt. It's often a sentence you whisper to yourself in the dark. What if I'm not broken? What if I've been wrong about me? What if I was never the problem? And that whisper, it's a rebellion. A rebellion against the narrative that's kept you in emotional debt for years. It's when you stop measuring your worth by how productive you are, how much people like you, or how well you avoid mistakes. You begin to ask different questions. What do I want, really? Who am I when I'm not performing? What parts of me have I abandoned just to belong? These questions don't give you answers right away. They give you discomfort. And that discomfort, that's good. That means you're close to something real. Close to the part of you that's still alive, still whole, still waiting. The part that never stopped hoping someone would see them, even if that someone is you. You don't become confident overnight. You just start treating your self-doubt like a visitor, not a permanent resident. You greet it, name it, then guide it out the door. And you realize you've been carrying bags that were never yours. Beliefs, labels, limits, inherited, not chosen. The moment you recognize that, you're no longer under the spell. You're watching it from the outside. And from the outside, you can finally choose something different. The work of healing isn't loud. It doesn't always look like breakthroughs or bold leaps. Most of the time, it looks like this: a pause, a deep breath, and a small decision to respond differently, just once. That's how unraveling begins. Not by fighting your doubt, but by understanding it, listening to it, asking, whose voice is this really? See, your self-doubt has a source, a moment, a sentence someone said, a silence that screamed. Once you stop treating it like a character flaw and start treating it like a memory, you shift everything. You don't need to silence the voice. You just need to stop letting it drive. And that begins with truth, not positive affirmations, not fake confidence, but honesty. Truth like, I don't feel good enough right now, and I'm still worthy. I'm scared to try, but I won't abandon myself again. You don't overcome self-doubt by proving it wrong. You outgrow it by seeing through it, by naming it without shame, by showing up for yourself again and again, especially when it feels awkward, unfamiliar, or slow. And sometimes you'll stumble. You'll fall back into the old silence. You'll believe the voice again. That's okay. Healing isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. You circle back, but every time you come back with more clarity, more strength. Progress is often invisible. You'll still hear the voice, but one day you won't listen to it. And another day you'll talk back. And eventually you'll walk into a room and not shrink. You'll speak without rehearsing. You'll rest without guilt. Not because the voice is gone, but because you finally stopped mistaking it for truth. Healing isn't about perfection. It's about permission. Giving yourself permission to exist without needing to earn it. To feel fear and keep going. To take up space without apologizing for it. To say, I am here, and mean it. Let your healing be gentle. Let it be clumsy. Let it be yours. You are not behind. You are just beginning. For the first time as the real you. And that is more than enough. Self-doubt is not your nature. It's your inheritance, passed down through moments you didn't choose but learned to live by. And now you're waking up, not with rage, not with noise, but with clarity. You've seen it, how often you silence yourself, how often you shrink before you even begin. But today you heard something deeper, the truth underneath the noise. You are not broken, you are becoming the person who no longer walks with fear as a guide, becoming the person who doesn't flinch at their own power, becoming the person who can feel doubt and still choose to move forward.